Open your Bibles, if you would, please, to 1 Samuel chapter 25. And if you don't have a Bible, you raise your hand, and one of the men or women will work their way through. And you got to raise those hands really high. It's hard to see, and we'd love to provide you that. Page 221 in the Bible they give you. Page 221. It is 1 Samuel chapter 25. And in our continuing story, remember, David is on the move. He is being hunted by Saul, and God has protected and provided for him, and we are grateful to watch that and to see that. We left off last week. What has happened is Saul has stumbled into a cave where David and his men are. And in the cool of this cave, Saul has gone to literally relieve himself, and he decides to just take a little bit of a nap in there. David has an opportunity, and his men are encouraging him to come and to kill Saul and put an end to this whole challenge. He doesn't do that. He cuts a piece of his robe off. And then when Saul leaves the cave, David shouts at him and then confronts him and says, I don't know what's going on here because you're trying to kill me. You keep saying that I'm trying to kill you. If I was trying to kill you, I would have done it right there. But I didn't. And Saul responds in chapter 24, verse 17, and he said, you are a more righteous man than I am, David. You're a better man than I am. And not only that, verse 20, I know that you will be king. This is really important. We talked about it last week, and we made this point now continuously since about whatever it is, chapter 14 or 15. Everybody knows that the kingdom is going to move from Saul to David. It's not like we do in this country, where we have a moment in January, around the 20th, every fourth year, oftentimes when transition of power will take place, like it did last January, and we have a moment where the transition of power moves from one man in administration to another. Well, the mantle is passed, but there's a time frame that's engaged here, and that proves to be a huge challenge, obviously, for Saul. Saul is jealous. He is looking out to kill David. They have this wonderful moment that we looked at last week, and if all you had was that and you stop there, you'd get a sense that perhaps it's over and that bygones are bygones, we're done, we're all on to a new time, but that's not the case. But we have almost like a parenthesis in here for the lesson that we look at today. One author describes this chapter this way. It's a long narrative with little narrative. That is, little explanation. What you'll see are speeches. David speaks, Nabal speaks, Abigail speaks, some of the servants speak. In the first, I think I counted 39 verses. In the first 39 verses, 26 or 27 of them are direct quotes. So there's this dialogue that's taking place. There's huge drama in this story. If you look at this, you will see. So in my Bible, and I don't know, I assume in yours, you will have headings over certain sections. So I have 4 sections here. I have a section that begins in verse 2. It says Nabal and Abigail. Verse 18, Abigail intercedes. Verse 39, David marries Abigail. Well, here's how, and I've talked about this before, but it's been a while. Here's how I will typically do a lesson. I will tonight or tomorrow, no later than Tuesday, kind of read through. So I would have read through chapter 25, gone through some stuff and said, okay, I think there's enough there for us to do one lesson there. For example, when you get to verse 26, you get chapter 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. That really is one continuous story, and I would not be surprised if we couldn't cover all of that next week. Now, that's ambitious. It'll take discipline on my part, but it is kind of just that same story again and again. So I'll read it, and then I'll read it in a couple different translations, maybe a paraphrase, and then I'll start with the materials that I have that I've given to Karen, and then she sorted out and prepared for me. And then I'll do that. I'll read through those materials. Then typically kind of Friday and Saturday, I get all of that done. And then, and by the way, if you're somebody who prepares lessons, don't do it this way. Okay, this is not the way to do it. My friends don't believe I do this. Because it is very risky. I'll get here about 4:45 in the morning, and then this is the day that I will write it, literally this morning. So if you're walking through, you're going, this seems a little late to be doing this. Well, all this is really the culmination of all that other work. So I try to, like Saturday night, I don't sleep. I mean, I'm awake, I'm out, I'm in and out, and my mind is just going through this lesson over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then that's a pretty typical week of how I put it together. Well, I got this all banged out. Verse 1, Samuel dies. Everybody gets together. They say goodbye. Then it's the story really about Nabal. He's an idiot. Abigail, she's terrific. Then there's this confrontation. Then they go. I'm all done. Ready to go. You know, all of a sudden, yesterday afternoon, I pick up something that I had read, but I actually skipped it because it dealt with verse 1. And I just said, verse 1, Samuel dies. You know, good luck, Samuel. See you later. That's kind of how I felt. I felt like I don't need a lot of time on this. I'm going to read you this paragraph. And then when I read it, I just realized that this is going to be a very long but a very sweet day for me. The author writes this: we have all had mentors who were special to us, people we trusted, who could be relied upon to give us wise advice. And even if we did not phone them every day, we had the security of knowing that they were there. However, there comes a day when God calls them home, and we are alone. I read that, and there are a couple of things. First, there's this intellectual side. I want to argue a bit. I don't know that we have all had mentors, plural, who fit in that category. You have people that give you advice, and you have people that are friends, and you have that category. And I'm not dismissing that. And then you probably have in your life a special group of people. So over the years, if I look back on it in my life, there's been guys that you would know. There's been some guys you wouldn't. A guy by the name of Bob Shank, for example, has had a real impact on me. Jerry Smith, Dave Newquist have been friends of mine in terms of these things for a long time. And God has Tim and Tyler and Neil and some of the other staff people and a few others around right now in my life. But when I read this, I only think of one guy. I only think of Larry. And it fits perfectly here. That you have people that you trust, and you can rely on their advice, and you just know they're there. They're almost like a human security blanket. And then there comes a day when God takes them home, and we're alone. And when I read that, I realized yesterday that it was going to be a long day and again a sweet day for me, because I knew that each time I taught this, there would be a reaction for me. Because I think that's really an important paragraph. I think it's really important for you to have in your life somebody like that. And I think, this is just some observations. I think there needs to be an age discrepancy there. I think you can have peers like that, but then there's that difference. So Larry would have had that in my life. And I also think that there's people that you God drops in your life, and then once they're gone, no one takes their place. I always talk about that at funerals. You know, you just lost your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother. There's a hole in your heart, and there's a heaviness right now. And I want you to understand it's not going to get better. That's your mom. That's your dad. That's your brother. And that's a sign, really, of healthy relationship. And I just so thank God that in my life He brought lots of people who serve as, I'll say mentors, I guess, and advisors. But at least He allowed me to have this one guy who's above all else, who no one could ever fill that spot. It's the way it is. In my prayers that you would, I guess I pray a couple of things. One, I pray you have that too. And I pray that if you don't have that God would provide it for you. And I pray that God would allow me to be that in other guys' lives too. That's a huge deal. In terms of the story, Samuel's absence is big because he's the 10W40 in this relationship between Saul and David. He's the thing that's at least minimizing what's going on here. And now that he's gone, Saul in particular is ready to run amok. In verse 2 and 3, we're introduced to this couple. If opposites attract, this is a perfect illustration of it. There was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel. He was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. And it came about while he was shearing the sheep in Carmel, his name was Nabal that his wife, Abigail, who was intelligent and beautiful in appearance, but the man was harsh and evil in dealings. He was a Calebite. There are these two people married to one another. Nabal, he is rich. It is likely, one author just uses this phrase, I liked it, his possessions preceded his own person. He seems to be defined by his wealth. It is fair, I think, to assume that they were a large part of defining who he was. And we're going to see in a bit that he certainly was swept away with who he was. He was one of those guys who probably said, well, I worked really hard for all of this, or I'm really smart, or I have business savvy, and I run into people like that, successful people like that all the time. And I love to constantly remind them, there's a lot of people who work harder than you do. There's a lot of people who are smarter than you are. There's a lot of people who may have indeed more business savvy than you do. But God's blessed you. And rather than brag about it, you ought to feel the burden that comes with success, because God's blessed you, whatever it is, for one reason, to glorify Him, but to bless others as well. That's why He blessed you. Nabal doesn't get this at all. His name means fool, and he lives up to his name. I assume that no parent would have a birth and go, look at him, what a cute little boy, let's name him Fool. So my assumption is it became his name a little bit like Lefty or Slim, that everybody, and we see it universal. Verse 17, we see the servants. Verse 21, we see David. Verse 25, we see Abigail, all with the same assessment of this guy Nabal. And here's the assessment. He is a worthless man. He is good for nothing. He's a despicable character. And probably like in your life, nobody'd give him any time at all, except he's got a lot of dough. He's got a lot of stuff. And God has allowed him to marry this beautiful, intelligent, wise, loving, caring, proactive woman. She is the real deal by any measurement. How do you end up with her? That's a fair question. Probably, likely, he ends up with her because it was an arranged marriage. He had some cash, and her parents thought this would be a good deal for Abigail. This will protect her. We'll take care of her. None of that, though interesting, is the main thrust of this. Regardless of how she got in this relationship, and you're going to see, verse 25, she says, please do not let my Lord, she's speaking to David, pay attention to this worthless man. She knows this guy's an idiot. She knows that indeed he is not too bright. Verse 17, nobody can talk to him. He's arrogant. He won't listen to anybody. And rather than try to figure out how to get out of that marriage, she's trying to figure out, how do I serve him in the midst of this marriage? She is an extraordinary gal. And we'll see that as the story unfolds. Verse 4, David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep. So that's like reaping the harvest. This is a time of celebration. This really is a festival. And he hears this. So David sent 10 men to him, and he said this, verse 5, go up to Carmel and visit Nabal and greet him in my name. So I'm here on David's behalf. And thus you shall say, have a long life, peace be with you, peace be to your house, peace be to all you have. Now I have heard that you have shears, and now your shepherds have been with us, and we have not insulted them, nor have they missed anything all the days we were in Carmel with them. Okay? We protected them. Now, if you doubt that, verse 8, you go and ask them. They'll tell you. You go and ask them what they say. And therefore, because all of this is true, David says, let my men find favor in your eyes, for we have come to a feast day. Please give us whatever you find on hand to your servants and to your son David. And so David's men go and deliver this message to this fool. And they wait for his response. David is saying, we've provided protection, we've done this, now we want you to respond. We need help, and we're asking you to help us. Look at Nabal's response in verse 10. He said to David's servants, who is David? And who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants today who are each breaking away from their masters. Now he knows, everybody in the land knows who David is. He knows who David is. But there's this sense of self-sufficiency and self-righteousness. You really get it in the next verse. 4 singular personal pronouns. My. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my meat and have a slaughter of my shears and give it to the men whose origin I don't know? He knows who these guys are. He said, here's David. There's a whole bunch of people running about right now in rebellion. And I guess this David must just be one of those guys. Now, when I read verse 11, and you don't need to turn there, my mind immediately went to a gospel story where Jesus is asked by a man to tell his brother to divide the inheritance with him. And Jesus lays out a principle in Luke 12. And then he tells a parable. He said there was a rich man with a very productive land. And he began reasoning to himself. Listen to this reasoning. And I'll put the emphasis again on the singular personal pronouns. What shall I do since I have no place to store my crops? And then he said, this is what I will do. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones. And there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have many goods laid up for you for many years to come. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. In that 2.5 verses, he uses a singular personal pronoun 10 times. It's all about me. I'm going to store all this up. And Jesus said, you fool, this very night your soul's required of you. Who will have what you own? So it is with a man who treasures for himself, sets up treasures for himself, and is not rich toward God. And then he goes on to say, don't worry about these, consider the raven. Well, the principle with which he introduces his parable is in verse 15. He said this, beware, be on your guard against every form of greed, for not even when one has abundance does his life consist of possessions. He's talking about the man in the parable, or Nabal here. He's the guy that would be on the cover of Forbes or Fortune. He's the guy that would fly all over the world, who would give these seminars on how to get rich quick and how to make money in this and how to sell short here and how to do things over there. He's the guy. They're the guys. And the temptation in the midst of that is to think there's something special about you. I think that's why what Paul has in mind when he writes in 1 Timothy 6, and he said, watch out for riches. Watch out, those of you who are rich. Don't put your confidence and your trust in riches. Not just because they can evaporate, but we tend to ask riches to do what only God can. This is a huge principle for us. Life is temporary. Even the king of pop will die. Even in the midst of that, he will die. By the way, and I just add this, I'm trying to cut down on TV, so I didn't watch a lot of it. But I watched enough, and I was talking to somebody this morning, and this is just a side lesson of a side lesson of a sub-point. Okay? But let's go there for just a second. Even when we look at this, somebody was making the observation today, they were talking about Michael Jackson, Michael's dad, and saying when Michael saw him, he would literally begin to cry and to shake because he was so domineering. And that the other brothers, that the dad was doing all the time going, you're not like Michael, you're not like Michael. Consequently, all the brothers hate Michael. Michael's a mess. I mean, I don't know, please don't laugh at this, because I don't mean it as a joke. I don't know much anymore what normal is, but I know he wasn't. And there's a reason. That doesn't excuse all that, but there's a reason for that. And to those of us who are dads in particular, I've found a powerful message in there. Very little in the Scripture directly about parenting, but it does say to fathers, don't provoke your children. And you were looking at one provoked guy. And I'm reminded again of the power of words. I talked about it in Priority Living this week. And I illustrated it from my own life. There was an incident that happened 55 years ago, over a half a century ago. I was in kindergarten with a teacher named Miss Julie. I can tell you exactly how the room was set up. We had just colored a picture of 3 kids playing in the snow. And we passed them in. And I was sitting over here. And she held this up and she said, look at this. Look at this picture. Everybody look up at this picture. This one. See this picture? Everybody look at it. You see it? See it? You see this picture? Tom colored this. Tom colored this picture right here. I thought, oh my golly, what an incredible moment this is going to be. My first moment of public affirmation. Here's what she said. Do you see this? Do you see this kid here in a red snowsuit and these orange mittens? Don't you ever put red and orange together. Ever. Tom did this. Well, I'm over it. It hasn't shaped me terribly to what I am today. Isn't that amazing? 55 years ago, I can tell you the room, I can describe the room, I can tell you where I was sitting, I can tell you what I colored. Reinforced by that. And that's the power, by the way, and that was this week's lesson in Priority Living, that's the power of the tongue. Life and death lies in the power of the tongue. And especially guys, it's going to be, well, we'll do it with everybody. It's the power of the tongue to edify, to encourage, to build up. But what the tongue does is reveal what's inside, and what Nabal reveals is that he's an idiot. This is all about me, me, me. So I'm not going to take my stuff and share with anybody. Get out of here. So the men drive back, right back in verse 12. They retrace their way back, and they give a report to David. And David says, in essence, in verse 13, load the guns and saddle the horses. We are going to go get this guy. We've had it. We are going to take this guy down right now. Now, one of Nabal's servants goes to Abigail and brings her up to speed on what's going on. And tells her, David's going to kill everybody. You better do something. And his conclusion is verse 17. Now, therefore, no one consider what you should do, for evil is plotted against your master and against all his household. And again, he's talking about Nabal here. He is a worthless man that no one can speak to him. No one can talk to this guy. He won't listen to anybody. He's worthless. That word appears in the Hebrew in the Old Testament 26 times, 10 times in 1 and 2 Samuel. Again, it literally means good for nothing, not profitable. It's also translated destructive, rascal, scoundrel, ungodly, wicked. That's who this guy is. Abigail gets this message. She hears of this destruction, verse 18, and I circled this word in my Bible, she hurried. She took 200 loaves of bread and 2 jugs of wine and 5 sheep already prepared, 5 measures of roasted grain. What she did was take everything that she had prepared for the feast of the shearing of the sheep. She takes those, she loads them onto donkeys, and she said to her man, go before me, behold, I'm coming after you. She didn't tell Nabal. So there's 2 observations I would make here. 1, she understood telling him is a waste of time. He isn't going to get it. 2, she moved quickly. And that's as a result of a servant coming to her. And I'm reading in between the lines, but you get the sense that this was the typical standard operating procedure at Nabal Enterprises. Is that frequently Abigail was coming in there to deal with things. The servant had no problem going and saying, and apparently understanding somehow that this was how you do it. Abigail, you better do something. And if for no other reason, then I don't want to get killed. Because David says, I'm going to kill everybody. There's no one going to survive all of this. So off she goes. And it came about that as she's coming up on one side of the mountain, David's coming on the other side. Verse 21, and David said to her, surely in vain I've guarded all this that this man has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belonged to him. And he has returned me evil for good. And in a sense, here's an oath here in verse 22. May God do so to the enemies of David and more so if by morning I leave as much as one male of any who belong to him. Here's what he's saying. If I don't kill all of these guys by morning, I want God to take my enemies and have them kill me. I'm going to wipe this guy and everybody that's around him or associated with him. Everybody that's wearing a little Nabal logo on their shirt, they're gone. Anybody who's got anything to do with him, they're out of here. And Abigail sees David. She hurries, dismounts. She fell down on her face before David. She fell at his feet and she says, now she's going to finally speak here in verse 24. And we get huge insights into who she is and how she thinks. On me alone, my Lord, be the blame. Please let your maidservant speak to you and listen to the words of your maidservant. Please do not let my Lord pay attention to this worthless man Nabal. For as his name is, so is he. He's living up to his name. Nabal means fool or folly, and that's him. But I, your maidservant, didn't see the young men that you, my Lord, have sent. I wasn't there. I would have intervened. I would have tried to take care of this. Now, therefore, my Lord, as the Lord lives and your soul lives, since the Lord has restrained you from shedding blood. This is a gigantic point. It's made in verse 26, 33, 34, 36. God is restraining you. God is restraining you from shedding blood and from avenging yourself by your own hand. Now let your enemies and those who seek evil against you be as Nabal. Let God deal with them. Let this gift which I, your maidservant, have brought you to my Lord be given to the young men who accompany you. Please forgive the transgression of your maidservant, for the Lord will certainly make for my Lord an enduring house. The Lord God will make for you, David, my Lord, an enduring house. Because you, David, my Lord, are fighting the battles of the Lord. And evil will not be found in you. Should anyone rise up to pursue you and to seek your life, then the life of my Lord shall be bound in a bundle of the living with the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies he will sling. And that brings back to, right to your mind, a picture of what? David and Goliath. Sling them away. And when the Lord, that's God, does for you, David, my Lord, according to all the good that He's spoken concerning you, and He appoints you ruler over Israel. So here's what Abigail's saying. Just like everybody knows, she knows too. When that time comes, when God makes you the ruler of Israel, at that time, in that moment, I want you to be able to assume this with clear conscience. That this will not cause you grief or trouble, my Lord, because of two things. One, you will not have shed blood without cause. And two, by my Lord having avenged Himself, in other words, you will not have vengeance. You won't shed innocent blood. You won't avenge yourself. When God deals well with you, my Lord, then remember your maidservant. She said, there's this time coming. And I know your tendency, David, because it's a tendency we all have. I don't want to get mad. I want to get even. It's the very principle that we looked at last week that David got. He lived this. He became the model of it in 1 Samuel chapter 24. We saw the principle in Romans 12:17. Never pay back evil for evil to anyone. Respect what is right in the sight of all men. If it's possible, so far as it depends on you, be at peace with all men. It seems implied that it's not possible. You can't live at peace with everybody. But as far as it possibly can, you live at peace with everyone. Never take revenge on your own, my beloved, but leave room for the wrath of God. It's written, vengeance is mine. I will repay, says the Lord. But if your enemy's hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him to drink. If you're going to do good, you will heap coals upon his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Well, Abigail becomes a picture of this. Abigail understands the human heart. She understands. David, I got it. I understand what you're doing. But I'm asking you to live in a bigger way, in a supernatural way, in a loving way. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, we saw the definition of love, 15 attributes. One of them was, it does not take into account a wrong suffered. I know you've been hurt, David. I understand it. But how are you going to respond? Here's a 101 principle in life. If you get nothing else out of today, which is entirely possible, Grab this, because you can use this every day of your life. Okay? Got it? When you are sinned against, your tendency is to respond sinfully. So if somebody sins against you, you're going to want to get even. If somebody sins against you, your heart's going to become hard. If somebody does you dirty, you're going to want to do the same thing to them. You're going to want to repay them. You're going to even the score. And it may not happen today, and it may not happen tomorrow, but I'll hunt you down. You're in my crosshairs. You've done this to me. I want you to know that it's coming right back. I promise you this is going to happen. Humanly, that's how we respond. So I was watching this week a little bit of the governor of South Carolina. Susan and I had a little bit of different takes on this. But and it may be just typical male and female. But I said one of the interesting things to watch, which is, and what he did wrong, we got all that. I can't even imagine I got to stipulate that, but we got it. But one of the interesting things to watch is how his wife responds to this. I know what her rights are. I got all that figured out. But where's your heart? And I've said it before, and I really mean it, and I'm not looking to be put to the test. But I'm telling you, and I've said it to Susan, if you slept with every guy in Tempe, I would not leave you. You'd be tired and weary, and I wouldn't see you much, but I wouldn't leave you. I wouldn't leave. There's nothing you can do to get me out of this relationship. Okay? As much as you may want me at. There's nothing you can do. Because I said this is what we're going to do, and so this is it. This is what this thing is about. And so when you sin against me, I've got to guard my heart and understand that what comes out at that moment is what's really in my heart. And my flinch will be to respond sinfully. You betray me, a trusted... I got all that. I understand all that. I'm not stupid. I'm not naive. And I've lived life. I get it. But what God's saying is it possible for you to live not just naturally, but supernaturally? It gets into this entire idea of even being able to forgive. And in that we find extraordinary freedom. We'll talk about that in a minute. What's fascinating to me is that Abigail reminds David of what David taught us a chapter ago. David had the opportunity to avenge Saul last week and didn't. But now he wants a piece of Nabal. And I don't know why, other than just human nature. I have to be reminded of these two. I never achieve that complete victorious life. David has this high watermark last week. When we look and go, this is extraordinary. He's pushed back all of the comments and really the situation from the guys around him who are saying, David, everybody knows what's going on. Go get him. It's okay. Do it, David. Nobody's going to blame you. He's dealt you dirty. You go get him. Nobody would blame David. But David said, no, I don't think that's right. I think that's wrong before God. But here he is now, and he wants to go right after this guy, and God intervenes. He intervenes in the person of Abigail, and David recognizes it. Look at verse 32. Now David speaks, and he says to Abigail, not you, Abigail, but blessed be the Lord God of Israel who sent you to me this day. Blessed be your discernment. Blessed be you who have kept me this day from bloodshed and from avenging myself by my own hand. This is a God thing, Abigail. God used you. God brought you here. Now, here's what I want you to see. Because when you read the story, and I've heard it taught a whole bunch of ways, you can't miss the fact that Abigail saves Nabal. Okay? David is now going to say, all right, call off the dogs. Let's go ahead and finish that, and I'll come back. Nevertheless, the Lord of God who lives has restrained me from harming you. And unless you had come quickly to meet me, surely there would not have been left to Nabal until the morning light as much as one male. If you wouldn't have intervened, I would have killed this guy. He was gone. But you intervened. Here's what I want you to see. Clearly, Abigail spares Nabal. But she saves David too. She spared David from doing this awful thing that would have haunted him all of his life. Now, he ends up, in many ways, living these things out anyway. This is an incredible woman. This is an incredible person that God uses in a marvelous way. And David says, I get it. I understand it. The deal is done. Go home in peace. See, I've listened to you. I grant your request. We're done. Retreat. Everybody go away. Verse 36, Abigail goes to tell Nabal, behold, there's a feast in the house, like a feast of a king, and Nabal is merry within, and he's very drunk. This is exactly where we'd expect this guy to be. So, she didn't tell him anything at all until the morning. No point talking about it now. He's liquored up. He's not going to get it. He's not going to remember it. But in the morning, when the wine had gone out of Nabal, his wife told him these things, and his heart died within him. He had a heart attack. So that he became as a stone. And about 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. Now, that's the end of those two. There's one I want to read one more verse, because David hears this. David hears that Nabal is dead. In the last part of verse 39, David sent a proposal to Abigail to be his wife. He saw firsthand, this is somebody really special. I made 7 observations out of this morning. Let me give them to you in 12 minutes. Number one, do you realize God is always working? We may not always see it. David had the opportunity here to go, wait a minute, you're here, this timing, this is a God deal. So the old spiritual, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got you and me, brother, in his hands. You and me, sister, the little bitty baby. Everything in my life is caused by or allowed by God. He's absolutely sovereign. He's at work today. He's always working in and around, and sometimes we don't even see it at all. We don't understand it. We are confused by it. But we know this. He began the good work. He'll continue the good work. He didn't create the world and go, wow, let's see how this happens. Let's see what goes now. Nor did he work just through the Old Testament and into the New Testament. And then once the book of Revelation was done, he said, all right, well, I wonder how this will turn out. No, God started this, and he continues all the way through. He'll reign at the end. Jesus is coming again. We understand that. But this is all the story of how man fell and how God redeemed and how God is in the process of restoring us in the midst of this creation. It's an amazing truth. God is at work. Here's the second thing. God works through people. What type of people? People like Abigail. As you read through this, what are some of the characteristics that pop out at you about Abigail? Well, the first thing I see is the way she describes herself. I'm a servant. That's what God uses, servants. People with a servant's heart. People are here, and don't confuse that with a specific activity, because I think sometimes we do that. Oh, a servant is one, and then we think of who cleans the place, or polishes the toilet, or does the parking, or servant. No. A servant it's because it's not activity-based. It's a heart-based. It's a servant who uses their gifts or talents or resources to serve others. Not natural. Remember, Jesus is walking along. The disciples are back there. They're having this heated discussion. He knows what they're talking about. They sit down and finally goes, boy, you guys are all upset. What were you talking about? Nothing. Oh, yeah, what were you talking about? Well, they're arguing about who's going to be greatest among them. Two of them had their mom go to him and say, hey, Jesus, these two boys, they're the best. Bring them up to the top. You're going to want them in the cabinet. One on the right, one on the left. You're going to want them right there with you. That's how we are. If we get it, and here's what I love. Even the world, totally pragmatic, even the world gets it. Servanthood works. So the new phrase in leadership is servant leadership. Right? It's servant leadership. But it's entirely counterproductive. I'm about to say something that is probably inaccurate and probably not fair, but it'll make a point anyway. Okay? And you can apply it. I see this all the time in corporate America. All of this strategy, all of this control. I'm going to puke if I got to watch these government guys try to figure out how to control more stuff, how to figure out more things. Here you go. Look at the airlines. You got one airline that makes money, right? Now, I don't mean to be complicated here, but you got one airline that makes money. The guy wrote a book and told you how to do it. If you were one of the other airlines, why wouldn't you do this? And the people I meet that work at all the airlines, there's a couple of them sitting right in the front row here, so I have to be very careful. There are people who are right there. They're wonderful people. But the structure's all jacked up in these companies. I'm convinced, now I know this is risky and you can't prove it. I'm convinced these CEOs would rather have control and dominate and lose money than give away control and respect and make money. Because it's all about it. It's Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett wrote a book. Okay, Warren Buffett, whether you like him or not, that guy's really successful. He wrote a book. He told you, here are the 4, 5, 10, 12, whatever they are, principles to guide for investment. Why would not everybody use those? Well, because I didn't think of them, because Buffett thought of them. Servant goes, I really don't care. It's the Ronald Reagan principle. I really don't care who gets the credit, because I'm about trying to accomplish something. I want to get something done. I want to get us in the black. I want to make us successful. I want to do what's best for everybody. For the shareholders. Well, the best thing for the shareholders would be to make some dough for them. That would be a good one. And the best way to do that is to just serve. But that means now I'm yielding control. We somehow are afraid that if we serve others, we're out of control. With this whole thing, now if we're going to make it on a personal basis, is my third point, is that there's great power and freedom in forgiveness. Nabal is a fool. He's worthless, self-motivated, arrogant jerk who nobody can talk to. Yet, in the midst of this, his intelligent, beautiful wife serves him. We got this whacked out view even of submission. I'm talking to guys all the time, and they're talking about how they run their house. I'm going, that's not submission. Submission is not me, Tarzan, and you, Jane. Submission is understanding, the final call rests with me. I've got that. I've got the burden of that. But you are a fool if you're not like, can you imagine if this guy would have just listened to his wife along the way? Provided her some insights? Had the power to forgive? See, that gets all muddled up in relationships, right? We're keeping score. You did this. I'll do that. We say it all the time. Okay, well, here's what you need to do. You need to do this, and this. Here's the first question. For how long? A week? A month? How long? What is the time limit? What's the expiration date at which I quit doing these things? Because now, if that person hasn't responded by then that's it. He didn't put an expiration date on it. Forgive him. But he doesn't deserve it. He's a fool. He's an idiot. He's a jerk. He's a guy. I got it. Huh? Right? I am one. I can say it. I got it. What do? You forgive. He doesn't deserve it. I understand that. There's a whole bunch of things I don't do well, and you could make a long list of them. There's one thing I do very well. I am a world-class forgiver. You can screw me and 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 screw me. You just can't. And it's because I know Ephesians 4:32. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving each other, just as God in Christ has forgiven you. It blows me away. It blows me away when I think of the sin that I'm capable of. It blows me. I could do what the governor of South Carolina did. I could be whacked out of my mind like a Michael Jackson. I could be doing anything. That's all of us, man. We have certain categories. Boy, I'll tell you what, and you know what they are. There's certain things, and if you're doing that, you're in real trouble. And then we've got certain sins. If you gossip, we don't think anything of it. Whatever. A little overweight, let's grab a donut and talk about it. Okay, that's exactly how we approach this thing. Well, that's sin. I need to be forgiven. Any human relationship will provide you infinite opportunities for forgiveness. Any relationship. And we're to forgive. Forgive and forget. I've never gotten the forgot part down. I don't know how you forget it. Well, God forgets it. No, He doesn't. So as far as the East is from the West, God's got amnesia? No, He doesn't forget the event. He doesn't hold it against you. Here's the fourth thing. It's impossible to put a formula to this. I'm talking to somebody the other day, and he's talking about a guy who is going to go and write a book. And this will sound terrible, but he's writing a book on marriage. Okay, whatever, good. I just can't imagine we need another book on marriage. Okay? I mean, how many books of this do you need? I don't know how you formulate this. Be nice. Be kind. Be sweet. Let me read you something here. This week, I got back from the gym. It's 12/17 on the 23rd. I got back from the gym, and I sent this text to Susan. I don't know where she was. I'm going to leave some clothes in front of the dryer. Can you throw them in the washer, please? Now, you could say, you seem to be somewhat able-bodied. You just got back from the gym. You ought to be able to understand how to put your clothes in the washer. That's fair. I got it. I don't know how to do it. She's volunteered, but I sense that with the information comes a certain level of responsibility that I don't really want. Okay? So she gets this text message. 1 hour and 59 minutes later, she texts back. Now, ladies, think about your mind at this moment and what you would text back. She texts back, happy to. Would you like some dinner when you come home? Now, we can debate and argue and go all back, and I'm not saying you got to do that. I'm just saying, you see how that works, man? Now, how am I going to put that in a book? That's a heart deal. That's a dance that works. Some of you, that isn't going to work in your relationship. Got it. But in this whole process, you can't put a formula together of servanthood. You just sense it. You know the need. You know what it's like. You get it. Okay? Stupid, silly little things. She got up yesterday morning and said, oh, I don't have any milk. And I am not drinking a bunch of coffee. She said, I'm going to go get milk. Okay? Well, she left, and I thought, okay, she's going to get milk to put in her coffee. Wow, why don't I make the coffee? I don't know how. But it can't be that hard. It's got to be like doing the laundry, except I don't want to figure that out. But I just put some coffee on one of those little white things and some water in there, and she drank it. I don't know if it would taste any good. But you see that? For a moment, you step out of your world and into their world. It's the fifth thing. This is all counterintuitive. The Army built a whole marketing campaign around be all you can be. That's what we sense. Me, be all I can be. Here's what God's calling you to do, is for you to be a vehicle that He uses to allow other people to be all they can be. That's what He's talking about. And that's not natural. It's supernatural. The natural is to think about me. That's why these organizations don't work. That's why you watch these big companies, it just gags you to watch it. You see the stupidity, you see the waste, and you understand it's all about control and sin. It's all about sin. When they tell you that 30 to 40% of the costs involved in Medicare and Medicaid is waste and stealing, that means I could cut the medical bill in that area by 40% tomorrow if I could eliminate sin, which I can't. I got it. But we want to regulate that. Here's the sixth thing. Your battles are spiritual, so let God fight them. You don't need to go get a pound of flesh over here. God's going to get it. Let Him fight them in you, through you, in your life, in the lives of others around you. Let God do that work. You don't have to do it for Him. In the book of Ephesians, Paul tells us this truth. Our battle is not against flesh and blood. It's against these spiritual warfare. And here are our tools, our weapons, prayer, study, etc. Here's the seventh point. And that is, our God is a great God. That seems almost like a given, I guess. He is a great God. As I was writing that, I had Chris Tomlin on. And the song that came on is How Great Is Our God. As I was writing that and listening to that point. How great is our God? He's an amazing God. He's an awesome God. And He's still at work today. My fear is we read this story and go, that's an amazing story. He's still doing that all day, every day, in your life. He used Abigail. Really important now. Okay, let's do this like we're still a junior high school kid. Look up here. Okay, look up here. We want you to get this. Okay, get it? He still uses people today, He will use you just like He used Abigail. Here's the question to walk away with. Whose life around you will you be that Abigail today? That person today? That will bring that principle today, tomorrow, the next day. Over and over and over again. That's the question. He's an awesome God. He is a great God, a mighty God. Romans chapter 1, verse 16. Paul said, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. It's the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes. It's the power for deliverance, redemption, rescue. It's the power to live supernaturally. And He'll do it in our life today. That's the thing. Don't let this be an abstract story of thousands of years ago. It's as fresh as this morning's headlines. If you yield to Him. That's what He's looking for. What a great story. All right, we'll pick up next week. And I honestly believe next week we're going to finish the book. Yeah, but that's the goal. Okay, we have a goal. Things can happen. Let's pray. Father, thank You for these amazing, wonderful truths. It's a terrific reminder of who You are and how You work in our lives. God, thank You for working in a way that allows us to be part of Your plan and Your story. Will You use us in a powerful way? Not because we're powerful, but because You are. God, thank You for Jesus. Thank You for the one who redeemed us. God, thank You for the Spirit who empowers us. Use us, we ask it of You. In Christ's name, amen. A great week. I'll see you next week.